Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, addicts of all ages, welcome to Canadian Sober, eh? I'm your host and resident alcoholic, Dougie Fresh. So glad you're with us. Today is a very special episode, in my opinion. May not be other people's opinions, but it's my opinion. And I met this gentleman a few years ago on Zoom, on some Zoom meetings, and I saw that he was from Canada, and I was from Canada, and you know, he's just a great guy. You know, I had a sobriety festival up here in Collingwood, Ontario. You know, I started that 2019. And in the second festival that we had, I invited this gentleman up to share his experience, strength, and hope. And now I've asked him to come and share his experience, strength, and hope on the show, because I know that his message is powerful. It's really good. And he has such a way of putting you in that moment, putting you exactly where he's telling the story. And I'm just going to shut up and introduce our next guest, and he'll take it from there. Please, everybody, give Malcolm a big Canadian Sober welcome. Hey, Malcolm, how you doing today?
Oh, wonderful, Doug, and thank you for the opportunity to come and visit Sober Friends and share a little bit of experience, strength, and hope through a story. And I really love this opportunity, and I've learned so much from the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sitting here today is a lot different than I was sitting 4 years, 5 months, and 4 days ago. And I'm very appreciative and very grateful as well. A quick little story, and then I'll get into some experience and what I've learned through the program. I grew up in a very productive, happy household. My parents were not alcoholics, and it was just a beautiful environment. But I left home at the age of 17 into a training camp. And that's when I was first introduced to alcohol at 17. In the beginning, I enjoyed it. Then it became a distraction. And then it absolutely controlled my life. And through that time, I didn't recognize the potential hazards or the dangers of alcoholism, but I learned quite fast about what alcohol and the term alcoholism is in this alcoholic's life. Periodic sobriety throughout the time, and what I learned through this program coming through 4 years ago was our big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, The Doctor's Opinion. And that was Dr. William Silkworth. And he suggested some things that really caught my attention, because where I came from was from a very dark place. I had a lot of things, materialistic things in life. I had a family and a beautiful wife, but something was missing. And the fulfillment was not there. And I found that in the bottle, or at least I thought it was in the bottle. I thought that was the solution, and it certainly wasn't. And through reading the Doctor's Opinion, when I came in through to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was at my utmost low. I didn't know what was happening. I was confused. I was desperate. And then I just fell into the program. And some of the things that really highlighted for me was in that Doctor's Opinion, and it was that I had an allergy, a sensitivity to alcohol. I had the obsessiveness that I was thinking about alcohol. I had the phenomenon of craving that they suggest, and that is when I ingest alcohol, then my mind starts to get going in fast track. And then, of course, what I really identified was the progressiveness of the illness. Again, a little bit confused because I wasn't a daily drinker. I was a periodic drinker, what I identified as a binge drinker. And then when I learned and absorbed and marinated in the program, I found that what was happening is this inability to leave it alone, alcohol. I would always go back to it, even though I had days and weeks at times of being sober. And so that really confused me. And there's a few stories in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that I really identified. So I came into the rooms, and for 53 days, I listened. Hard to believe today, but I listened and I heard my story. And after those 53 days, I got in contact with a gentleman. And this gentleman, who the program suggests as a sponsor, walked me through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm forever grateful for that gentleman. You know, his name is Brian D. Without a sponsor, it was like water skiing behind a sailboat. I wasn't getting very far, and it was hard for me to stand up on my own. And so that's where the collection, the fellowship of the group. And this gentleman in our early get-togethers suggested to me that alcohol was maybe not necessarily my problem, even though that's what I thought it was. See, I didn't think I had a drinking problem, friends, but every time there was a problem, it was because of my drinking. So working with this beautiful man, he suggested to me, he said, Malcolm, maybe what you have is a spiritual malady. And once the spiritual malady is overcome, we clean up physically and mentally. I said, oh my goodness. Well, my wife, after our meeting, said, how did your little get together early in sobriety with your sponsor go? I said, honey, do you know what a spiritual malady is? She said, no. Do you know what it is? I said, no, dear, but apparently I've got one. She says, well, what are you going to do about it? I said, well, what we're going to do about it is we're going to go down to one of those big box stores, and I'm going to get some of that duct tape and glue, and we're going to fix this so-called spiritual malady. Well, what I came to realize, friends, and learn into the program is just that alcohol is but a symptom of something else. And that fulfillment that was missing was a spiritual connection. They talk about a power greater than ourselves. And that's what I was searching for. I had a lot of the luxuries. I was surrounded by a lot of friends and family, but I was missing something. And that was the spiritual malady. And the spiritual malady is kind of a confusing term, but for this alcoholic, what the spiritual malady is what Bill talks about in his story in the big book, and that is the destruction of self-centeredness. You see, my ego and my pride, my thinking is the most powerful thing that gets me into trouble. And what I found in that is that when I put that foot forward, that I wasn't going to be in a good place, certainly as an alcoholic. You see, when we take the word alcohol out of the word alcoholic, we're left with ick. And for this alcoholic, when we take the word alcohol out of the word alcoholically, which is how I was thinking and behaving, we're left with ickily. So alcohol has been removed from me, but I'm still dealing with my icks and my ickilies. And we have a process in the room of recovery where we work through those emotions and feelings, and it's the process of a part of the 12-step program. And we get the opportunity to have an opportunity to make those amends and to make things right. And so I'm very, very proud in a humble sort of way of being part of this membership and this fellowship, a group of people that share the same thoughts and processes that I do. See, the temperate drinker doesn't have those. But if you identify as a real alcoholic, you understand as certainly what the process is. So that's how I came to be. And I came into a lot of things as I went through my life. And what I found that Alcoholics Anonymous provided a blueprint and a design for living. And today, it's a very positive atmosphere, not perfect, but a lot better than it was. And I get to act like a man in recovery. And those things of what they talk about, the principles of the program, things like integrity and honesty, words like forgiveness that are really part of this spiritual journey that I'm on. and I continue to be on. And so now alcohol is but a forethought. It's more about improving the mind and the body through a connection with a higher power. And we talk about that in great lengths in the program. And now that I've been in recovery for a little bit of time, I find that we get I get to do a lot of things with my wife, my beautiful wife. And one of those things is shopping. Can you imagine me shopping with my wife? Well, she had this activity plan, and we went to one of those stores. Oh, you may have heard it, Bed Bath and Beyond. That's where we went. And the activity we were going to find were to get bed sheets for the matrimonial bed. Bed sheets. Ah, I thought I was going to pick up a new set of golf clubs or a tennis racket, but apparently there's no sporting section in that particular store. Well, I found a pair of bed sheets for $19.99. And my wife came around the corner and she had another pair of bed sheets and they were $89.99. I said to my wife, honey, what's the difference? She said, quality. Quality? I said to my wife, quality is saving $75 on fitted bed sheets. She said, no, honey, it's thread count. Thread count? I'll tell you, I didn't have a clue what thread count is, nor the Egyptian blend or whatever, but I'll tell you, looking back now, thread count apparently is the amount of stitching per 1 inch square on these fitted bed sheets. And the higher the quality, or the higher the thread count is, the higher the quality. Well, you know what? This fits in absolute tremendous meaning to me, because it's the quality of the program. It's the fellowship, the membership, a connection with the higher power, sponsorship, meetings, and in-depth big book work. So I'm very, very proud of that. I want to talk about one story that really hits home. And sometimes a message comes from a 6-year-old boy. My son, who was 6 years old at the time, was learning this game called hockey. And you can imagine a boy with his eyes as wide as saucers and a smile that could light up a small city, learning this game of hockey. And I remember him after the practice coming home. You know, you can just imagine a 6-year-old boy, a helmet that just doesn't quite fit right, a jersey that's 3 sizes too big, feet that don't touch the floor. And when he came home from hockey, I met him at the door and I said, hi, son, how was hockey? He said, Dad, I loved it. And he went into the house. Well, my wife came afterwards and she didn't have that same reaction. And she just said, Malcolm, I'd like you to know and to hear what your son said in the dressing room. I said, oh. She said, yeah, when your son was going to go on to the ice to learn how to skate, a couple of the parents came over and wanted to do up his skates. And I wanted you to know what your son said. I said, oh, what did he say? He said to those parents, no, thank you. He said, my dad ties up my skates. I'm waiting for my dad. That father never came that day. I was too busy shoveling the driveway, you know, making sure it was nice for the neighborhood, knowing full well that after an activity like that, I was able to reward myself with an alcoholic beverage. This program has taught me, friends, more than anything that I know, is to be present and available and set the priorities in life that are most important. And that's sharing the time with one another and carrying the message. You know, they suggest, and I'll finish with this, they suggest in the 12-step work that what we do is, after having the spiritual awakening, as a result of these steps, that we try to carry the message to other alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. I'm so grateful that I've been in these rooms and I continue to grow spiritually. I continue to lend a hand. I continue to listen to the people and their experiences, and I try to help wherever I can through service. And I will finish with this, that may your journey through a program of AA discover a place that you've always wanted to find. Doug, thank you so much for allowing me to come into these rooms and share a little bit of the story about alcohol and what it's done in my life. Thanks so much for allowing me to share.
Thanks, Malcolm. You know, I love you. I love you like a brother. You know, I'm so blessed that that you were here today to share your experience, strength, and hope with us. And I don't know what it was, but as you were talking about that moment with your son and going through that, I could feel the emotion in you. You know, and I could feel that was a moment that you'll never forget. You know, and so my first question to you would be, you know, when you first got sober and you were kind of going through all those emotions, you know, whether you remember it or not, but that first time where, you know, you were dealing with something and you thought maybe a drink would fix it, or maybe a drink would calm you down a bit or something like that. Can you walk us through, for the people at home that have no idea, you know, what alcoholics do when life gets lifey? Could you walk them through what it felt like that that you couldn't reach for the thing that you were always reaching for, and you had to deal with those inside emotions?
Yeah, that's a tremendous question. Thank you for asking that. You know, it's something that's really, really deep, deep, deep downside. So for me, alcohol, I felt, filled the void of what I was missing in my life. And those are the feelings and the emotions about being present and available, being a good person. And alcohol would take me away from that. And I would think it would either cure or make me feel better or take away all the pain. And what I certainly found out through the program is that's not the answer. The self-seeking that I was looking for, my self-seeking motives, or I was running away from responsibilities and taking ownership of things. So it was deflecting and avoiding through the bottom. And that's not the proper recipe at all, is what I found out. Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Malcolm. Yeah, I always found it tough in my first year or two, you know, when things really hit home, and I had to deal with it. It was hard to deal with it. I always wanted to reach for that crutch, per se, to kind of help me through, you know. And so you know, emotions are really, really real sometimes, and they can take us places that we never felt. I almost felt like sometimes whenever I share my story of experience, strength, and hope, that, you know, that first time that I had emotions, it was like that scene in The Grinch with Jim Carrey, and the tear falls down his face, and he kind of feels the tear, and he was like, "What's that?" You know, and he's crying, right? Like, and it's the first time the Grinch has felt any emotion, you know, other than, you know, hate or greed or anything like that. So yeah, thanks for answering that. You know, we don't talk a lot about it, but I'd like to ask you this question. You know, if there's any advice, if somebody's sitting in their home right now, watching you and I talk about, you know, recovery, and maybe themselves, or they know somebody that's struggling with alcoholism, or they know somebody that's struggling with substance abuse, what would be the advice you would give them right now that you wish you would have given yourself before you got into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous?
Yeah, the word that comes to mind is hope. There's hope. You know, when I stumbled into the rooms, I didn't have much hope. I didn't think anything could work for this alcoholic. The insanity, continually doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, living in fear, the fear of not getting what I want, or the fear of losing what I already had, the insanity of not knowing where to turn to, and what am I, you know, how can I do? But all I can suggest to, and again, it's a suggestive program, all I can suggest is that there is hope, there is a solution, there is an answer, and it's right here in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's worked for me, one day at a time, and we can recover, and we do recover. And for me, life is better. And you've said that to me, life will get better. Well, if it doesn't get better, it's going to get different. And by being different, it's going to get better. Hang in there.
Yeah. 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 Thanks. So if you're at home watching, eating popcorn like you should be watching Canadian Sober, eh, then take Malcolm's advice and hope that things will get better. And I believe they will get better. And get yourself to a meeting. Describe to me, Malcolm, and for the people at home, what your first meeting was like. What was going through your head? What were you feeling?
Yeah, a little bit of fear, a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of hesitancy, but it may not have been my first choice, Doug, but it was the right choice. And I'm glad I went in there. And when I heard this from a fellow member, that once I surrendered, I was surrounded by the love of the fellowship. And you guys picked me up when I couldn't pick up myself. Oh, it works. It really does. And we can find that on page 88 of our big book. Yeah.
Nice. If you wouldn't mind, I hope you don't mind me asking this question. But in the last couple of years, you've gone through a lot. You've had some health issues and some other things that you've had to deal with. How is the program, or how is the people that you have now in your life helped you along that journey?
Yeah, tremendous. I don't mind you asking that at all. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with a malignant gastrointestinal tumor. And and I've been surrounded by beautiful medical community in Toronto, Mount Sinai and Princess Margaret, beautiful, beautiful facilities and a medical team off the charts. But I will tell you this, that they could identify the tumor that lied within me. And what was happening is that tumor was killing me physically. But they could see it, and they cut it out on a 9.5-hour operation. Alcoholism, you can't see that tumor. Alcoholism was killing me spiritually. And so that's what I'm dealing with day by day. So the tumor, by the grace of a higher power, the God of my understanding, who I choose to call God, has relieved me of that for today. And the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is healing the spirituality that was missing in my life.
Yeah, great answer. One thing I was shocked to learn when I started to go to recovery meetings and I started to kind of get out there and get out of my comfort zone was that the people you meet in recovery and the bonds that you create and the circle of people gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Did you have that before recovery?
Before recovery, yeah, I had a collection of friends, absolutely. And but what I call them in the fellowship is a cast of characters like no other. We're not a glum lot, and we laugh a lot. However, what I see is the common thread is the passion for recovery. And when it's times to be serious about this fatal illness, this incurable disease, that we can do it together. Yeah.
And the one thing I noticed as soon as I got into recovery meetings was that everybody was willing to help, no matter what it was, and they didn't want anything in return. And that's not the friends that I had before I came into recovery. It was like a totally different world. I knew somebody that roofed and did roofing. So when I needed shingles replaced on my roof, they came on a blizzard day to replace shingles, and then they just looked at me and said, thanks, I don't need anything. See you at the next meeting, or no, you have something wrong with your car. Well, a car mechanic today, there's so many different people that you become friends with in recovery rooms that it's almost overwhelming at times that so many more people now in recovery that can help. How has some of the people in your life helped you grow? And has there been anything where, like, say, you're like, well, I'm glad I knew that guy? Has there been anybody
Yeah.
like that in recovery?
Oh yeah, there's a tremendous collection of people that have helped me out tremendously. And this fellowship, there are a lot of talented people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful that we come from all walks of life, all shapes and sizes, all different ethnic backgrounds, and we come together and share this one common, illness, this spiritual malady, and we work through it together. And yes, I have been blessed to know people like yourself, Doug, and people in the fellowship and the membership are just top shelf, I call them. And I wouldn't be where I am today without them and without all of you. And I always say that I thank for putting the you into me. And I appreciate that. Yeah.
Do you think there's still a stigma in recovery? Do you think there's still a stigma with people out there?
A personal opinion, I think so. I think there is. But over time, I think that's been weakened a little bit. But I think there is a bit, yeah. And again, going back, there's some talented, bright people. Everybody has a quality to them, and they remind me, Malcolm, to continue to practice, one day at a time. And that's what I do. Service. Trying to be the best. The me that I was meant to be. And that's what I feel and where we are today. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, Malcolm, I want to thank you for coming on the show today and sharing, what you shared with all of us. You are a fantastic human being, and I wish I lived closer to you, that I could go to meetings with you, in person or things like that, because I do feel a strong connection whenever I'm on a meeting with you or whenever I'm here. So thank you for coming on the show and sharing with us today.
Thank you so much, Doug. And thank you to the Rogers family. Appreciate it very
Yeah.
much.
Well, there you have it, folks. Malcolm shared his experience, strength, and hope with us today, and we'll have him back maybe in the future sometime. Thanks, Malcolm, for coming on today. Hope you enjoyed the show today, everybody. See you next time on Canadian Sober A. Peace out.